Hello everybody, Fletch here talking more football, and today we're going to be focusing on the Premier League table. We are 23 games into the season, the table is beginning to take shape, but how will it look come the end of the season? Well, it already looks like we have the champions of England already in our sights. Chelsea currently sit 9 points ahead of their second place nearest rivals Tottenham, and already look to have won the title for the 2016-2017 season. Their current form is better than everyone else's. They are more consistent than everyone else. And it's hard to see where the Blues will drop points and where everyone else will capitalise. It's not hard to see why Chelsea are at the top of the table. They've simply been the most consistent team in the division. Despite having a slightly difficult start to the season in which they were getting used to their new manager, who brought with them a new formation and new players, everything just seemingly clicked into place for them. Whenever they had drop points though, the other teams below them didn't really take advantage. This week was a perfect example. Tuesday and Wednesday's results saw Liverpool, obviously when they drew at Liverpool, they just saw Spurs draw at Sunderland and Arsenal lose to Watford. On the Wednesday, both Manchester clubs were in action, where United were held by Hull, and City were the only team to take advantage of Chelsea dropping points. And they were the only team to pick up a win in the top six. However, it doesn't really matter when you see that their current league positioning suggests that maybe a title push may be a bit of a stretch for them. They have also been entertaining at times this season of Chelsea. They have a near enough all-round perfect team. The composition of the team I'm talking about, really. It's a solid defensive structure that's very disciplined, a tireless and creative midfield, and with a top quality striker up front, regardless of how you think of him in a personal level, in Diego Costa. And that's not only to mention the transfer business that he did. Many eyebrows were raised at David Luiz, but he seems to have fit into Antonio Conte's system perfectly. And that also goes with N'Golo Kante. Kante moving from Leicester to Chelsea seemed a bit of a strange decision at the time, but it was a perfect bit of business, and it's seemingly been a bit of a bargain even at a price tag of 30 odd million. It's my firm belief that Chelsea have been aided by the fact that they have not had any Champions League football this season, as it means that whilst they're not spending time travelling to all these different places around Europe, they've had more time to focus on their new formation and new tactics on the training ground. It'll be more interesting to see how they cope with next season, assuming that there's no drastic changes that happens within the team or the Premier League table. They should have Champions League football next season. They should return there. So it'll be interesting to see how they balance that out with Premier League football. I just can't help but feel this is what happened a few years ago when Mourinho took Chelsea to the Premier League glory on his second spell there. It just seems that although Chelsea have been good this season, maybe they haven't been as good as everyone claims that they have been, and maybe this is just another case of Chelsea have just been the best of a bad bunch. Of course, that's open to interpretation. It's just a question I'm throwing out there. I don't know how you want to interpret that, but I'm just throwing it out there as a possible suggestion. Next season, it could be completely different. Let's turn our attention to the remaining members of the top six. We're talking Tottenham Hotspur, who currently occupy second, Arsenal, who currently occupy third, Liverpool in fourth, and both Manchester clubs in fifth and sixth, with City being fifth and United being sixth. This is a battle for top four now. I think the Premier League title is probably out of everyone's reach at this point. Chelsea, it's hard to see where they're going to drop points. It's hard to see where other teams are going to capitalise. So it's just now a clear race for top four. You're trying to fit 5 teams into 3 places. But each team has got their own faults. Of course, they've got their own strengths as well, but it's their faults that we're going to be focusing on. Liverpool's January dip, for example, is just one of their faults that they've had. Hopefully, February can restart their season again. City's yo-yoing form this season. 1 minute they're unplayable, the next minute they're incredibly poor. Arsenal's annual winter form, that's been reviewed time and time again over the years, and with Champions League starting again very soon, it's not going to get any easier. United are still adjusting to life under Mourinho. maybe next season we could see a much different side. Well, not obviously a much different side, just a much more polished kind of version from United of their current teams. And Spurs just seem to be missing something from their team. It's probably like a plan B up front to Harry Kane. They just seem to be missing something that's just keeping them from being genuine title contenders for long enough. We saw it last season. They fell at the final hurdle, but this season there's just something missing, and I think it is probably that striker's position, in which if Harry Kane isn't scoring, it's not as if they have a plan B up front. Of course, they have other players that are capable. It's just that striker position that seems to be letting them down a little bit. But and you can't really rule out Everton either at this stage. I mean, mathematically it is possible, but realistically, the 5 teams directly sat below Chelsea are those trying to make up their Champions League spots. Who will get there at the end of the season? I personally believe it will be how the top 4 is currently right now. I could be wrong, but that's how I see things going. I don't see the top 4. Positions could change within the top 4, obviously, but I don't see the 4 teams that are currently in the top 4 dropping out of it come the end of the season. Let's look at the foot of the table now, and Sunderland, Hull and Crystal Palace are each in a relegation place, with Swansea, Middlesbrough and last season's Premier League title winners Leicester sitting dangerously close to dropping into them. At this stage, I'd suggest that the bottom half of the table should be worried. The points difference between each team is dangerously close, and things can dramatically change in an instant. Palace have got Sam Allardyce, a manager who's not only known for his shady manager style of bending the rules, but also for saving teams from relegation. He saved Sunderland last season. It probably could happen again this season with Palace. It remains to be seen. Hull are kind of a bit unpredictable. You don't know which team's going to turn up every week. Their obvious downfall is that they don't score enough goals. But as well as that, they've just recently sold, in my opinion, their best player in Robert Snodgrass. So it remains to be seen how well they fare for the rest of the season. And Sunderland for me relied too heavily on Jermaine Defoe. They've of course got David Moyes there, who's no stranger to the Premier League. But having to heavily rely on a 34-year-old striker in Jermaine Defoe, I could be wrong on that, I apologise if I am, to get you the goals that you desperately need to stay up, it's a big ask. It's a really big ask for him. Can he do it again? Remains to be seen. As for the others that are just hanging above the relegation zone, Leicester have got Champions League to look forward to, so even if their season does turn horribly wrong from the incredible scenes of last season, they've still got a Champions League tie with Sevilla to look forward to. And of course, the teams who I mentioned previously, such as the Middlesbroughs and the Swanseas. Middlesbrough are the lowest scoring team in the Premier League, so they obviously need goals in order to save their season, and Swansea need to pick up some consistent form at any given moment, preferably sooner rather than later before it's too late. They're on to their 3rd manager this season. It would be horrible to see them go down after such effort has gone into recruiting managers. As far as everyone else is concerned, mid-table finishes, nothing too exciting for a lot of teams. Of course, there are Europa League places that I haven't talked about, but at this stage, with the Premier League, with the mid-table of the Premier League still being as tight as what it is, that's for anyone's game. I mean, you've got West Brom up there. You've even got Burnley, who are currently sat mid-table. They're doing better than probably many people had expected with such a small squad and such little money to play with. But they still deserve a shout out in this. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening. If you have any comments, of course, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from what you think about what my opinions. I'd love to hear what you think about the current Premier League table as it is. Do you honestly believe Chelsea will go on to win the Premier League? Do you think that someone could catch them? Do you think they could drop points? Do you think the teams currently sat in their relegation places will go down? I don't know. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in